In this episode, I will make a brief explanation of the most important Photoshop adjustments and how they work. Adjustments are different kind of effects, let's call them, you can create on your images. They are used to modify the attributes of an image, such as contrast, saturation, exposure, color balance, and things like that. So let's see them in practice. Let's press Command O to open our stock images folder again, and I'm going to use the same image as I used before, this one. I think it's a good example that we can use. Again, I'm going to make it smaller just so that my computer runs a little faster. I'm just going to lower the size of it to just 3000 pixels and zoom in a bit so I can see it better. With Command 0 you can fit it on the screen, remember that keyboard shortcut. I already talked about the adjustment in previous episodes. The quickest way of using an adjustment is clicking this icon on the bottom of the layers panel, and this opens the list of all the adjustments that we have available in Photoshop. But yet there's another way of using them, and that is from the menu item image. If you go to image, adjustments, and here you can see the same list, but we have a few others, like for example shadows, highlights, HDR toning, desaturate, match color, replace color, and equalize. Now I have to say that the bottom group, this one over here, I rarely used it, and the reason why I usually don't use these adjustments from the menu is because they are destructive. You will hear me a lot talking about destructive and non-destructive techniques. Non-destructive techniques are the kind of techniques that you can use or you can apply to your images and you can modify it later on the image. And destructive techniques are the ones that are applied to the image on the actual pixels of the image. When I open this image, you can see it's a background layer. I have to unlock it. If I apply an adjustment from here, for example, let's say photo filter, and I want to choose this yellow filter, I'm going to increase the intensity and click OK. Once I apply that filter, it's permanently applied to my image. Of course, I can undo it from here, from the history, or by pressing Command Z or Control Z. But if I close the image, or if I save this image, or if even if I save this as a Photoshop document and I open it back again, I cannot undo it because my history is gone. This is just a temporary thing, and you only have like 20 steps you can undo, so it's not infinite, and you cannot undo it. A better alternative is to use an adjustment as a layer, and you can do it from down here. By clicking this icon, you can use photo filter just as before, and I could choose yellow again and increase the intensity, and I have exactly the same effect, but now I can hide this effect if I want to. And an advantage that you have by using a layer is that you can also change the blend mode. So I could use screen to just maybe make the image brighter, and I can drop the opacity if I want to, and I can edit this whenever I want. And if you use it from the menu, you cannot edit it once it's done. So that's really a big disadvantage. But as I said, you have a few ones here, like for example, shadows and highlights, which is not available as a layer. So, and it's pretty handy if you want to add more lights on the shadows, for example. You can see what it does here on the sky by playing with this. So you can try it. You can try it on and see what you get. You can increase the saturation and do stuff like that. But remember, once you apply it, you cannot undo it. Some people, what they do is just create a duplicate of a layer. By the way, I did not mention this when I talked about the basic operations. If you press Command J, I don't know if I mentioned this, if you press Control J or Command J, when you have a layer selected, it's going to duplicate that layer. And some people, what they do is just create a duplicate and then go to Image, Adjustments, and apply the adjustment that they want to apply, and click OK. And that way they have a backup of the original image and have the image with the effect applied on it. If you want to apply an adjustment from here and convert it into a non-destructive adjustment, you can use smart objects. I'm going to talk about smart objects a little later in this course, but you can do it that way as well. But let's go through some of the most commonly used adjustments. Actually, let me just go through all of them and really quick. The first one is solid color, which basically just fills the whole canvas with the color that you add here. It's as simple as that. The advantage that we have here is that if we use it as a layer, we can double click and change the color in a fly. And also, of course, we can use blend modes, which is an advantage that all layers have. And also, of course, you can drop the opacity. So this is just like using the photo filter, but in a different way. The second one is the gradient. When you add it, it's going to open this panel and you can choose some gradients from here. Just fills the whole thing with a gradient that you choose. And of course you can create your own. You can click here and add your own colors and change the balance. And you have a lot of presets here. Remember this cogwheel, this gives you access to more presets. And again, you can download these presets from the internet as well. You can change the angle, you can change the scale, and you can change the style, linear, reflected, and lots of all these settings that you see here. And of course, blend modes, the same thing. Now, the next one is the pattern. Pattern, just like we saw on the layer styles, we have the same patterns here. It doesn't have any kind of options except the scale. So you can add some patterns, add a scale, and maybe you can change a blend mode and create sort of a texture on your image. Really simple. Here comes the fun part. This second group is the contrast or exposure group. Brightness and contrast allows you to increase the brightness of your image or the contrast. Usually I don't use this adjustment because I use another adjustment instead, which is the curves or levels, which we're going to get into just a second. But for beginners, this is perfect if they just want to add some more light. But you have no control over which parts of the image you add the brightness or the contrast to. It just applies it to the whole image. Next, we have levels. This is something a little more advanced. Here we have this is called a histogram. And from here we can change the midtones, the highlights, or the shadows. So we can darken the shadows. The midtones, we can make them brighter or darker. And the highlights, we can only make them brighter from here. If you want to make it darker, the highlights, you have to move the bottom slider here. And the same with the shadows. If you want to make the shadows brighter, which you cannot do from here, because here you cannot go more to the left, you have to do it from here. Now, here you can make some more complex adjustments, and the levels and the curves have these eyedropper icons, which allow you to set the balance of the light on the image. For example, if you click on this highlight eyedropper and click on this part over here, it's going to change. Well, if you just click randomly around the image, it's going to change things about that. I have tutorials more advanced explaining how that works. Now the curves, it's pretty much the same, but here you have more freedom because the histogram is the same, but it's a bit more condensed here. Here you can just click on parts of the image. On the left we have the shadows, and on the right we have the highlights, and you can see this gradient also tells you that. So for example, if I want to make the shadows a little brighter, I could put my cursor here at a point and drag it up. And the same on highlights. If I want to make them darker, I could do something like that. So for example, if I want to make the sky darker but keep the rest of the image how it is, I can keep everything along this line but just make the highlights a little darker, create this kind of effect. On the bottom you have these icons. This is to show you the before and after to see the change. With this other icon you can reset everything to how it was, and from here you can activate and deactivate the layer altogether. And this icon is to create a clipping mask. I didn't talk about clipping masks yet, but I will a little later on in the course. And one other thing you can do is if you click this this hand icon, if you move through the image, you will start to see a point, a small circle appearing along this line. So for example, if I want to just edit this part over here, I could click here. This will add a point right over there. If you just click and drag, it's going to move it up. Of course, it's going to move the whole curve. So maybe what you want to do is just click there and then also click here, because this is the part that I don't want to modify. And maybe some midtones area like this. And now I can go here and just move this without touching the rest of the sections there. So a really quick introduction to the curves. This more advanced stuff to it, but you can control the contrast and the brightness here. The next one is the exposure. Again, something really simple for beginners. It's okay to just increase the exposure of an image and change the offset and gamma correction. You can do all sorts of stuff in here, but it's a really sensitive adjustment. I usually don't use it. When you see this drop down that says preset, some adjustments come with some presets, but I rarely use them. Next, we have the color group. First is the vibrance, which allows you to saturate basically yellows and blues, and the saturation saturates the whole thing equally. Next, we have the hue saturation. This allows you to change the color of the entire image. Okay, then you can also desaturate things or saturate them, and also the lightness of the whole image. Notice that here we have, by default, this is set to master, but we can affect each color individually. For example, we can choose reds. Well, let's choose greens because we have more. We could choose greens, desaturate them. Now you can see it's not affecting the greens, because when you select one of these colors over here, it's going to show you which colors are you affecting. And I desaturate the greens, but I rarely have, you can see I just have here. So I would have to move this more towards yellows. And now if I desaturate this, you can see that now it's desaturating the yellows. But the sky stays the same. So for example, I could choose blues or cyans, move this more towards that tone, saturate that even more. Let's reset this. Here you also have this hand icon that we had on the levels. If you click it and move through the image, and if you click, for example, right over here, you can see it's gonna sample that color. And now if you, and it also automatically changed to yellows because that's the range that I chose. And you can modify the color from there as well. So it's a lot quicker. Just click there and desaturate the sky. Oops, let me just do it again. Click here and desaturate the sky or saturate it. Okay, so that's what this adjustment does. And of course, you have a few presets here which you can use. Then we have the color balance. This allows you to change the color, the balance of the color on shadows, midtones, and highlights. So I could add more, for example, more blue on the shadows and more red, and on the highlights I want to have more yellow and maybe more green or something like that. Okay, so just tweaking those sliders. Next we have the black and white. This will turn the image into black and white and allows you to change the luminosity of each color independently. So I can increase the brightness of the yellows, and on the blues I could make them darker. So it's really a powerful adjustment if you want to make black and white images that really pop out. And of course you have a few presets here which you can try. Then we have the photo filter, which I just showed you before. We have a few presets here and you can just add that. Of course you can choose your own color. A really simple adjustment to colorize your image. Then we have the channel mixer. This is kind of an advanced. Here you can change the amount of color each channel has. What you are looking for is that here you want to have the total to 100. So for example, if I add 25 there, I want to subtract 25 from there. And that way your image stays balanced, but you still change the aspect of it. Let's go with the greens. For example, I want to put this to 80, this to 30, and I have to subtract 10 from here. And you can see how I changed the image in just a few clicks. And maybe on the blues, maybe add 25 here. This to 75, and we're good to go. I desaturated the blues in some amounts, or maybe have this to 30 and 45 here, and that's how it looks like. So that's the channel mixer. Just play around and see what they do, and you will start to soon learn what each of these adjustments does. Invert simply just inverts the image, inverts the colors. It's an adjustment that I almost never used. Posterize is just to create this weird effect. Sometimes it's used to create posters and stuff like that, or really abstract effects. Threshold just turns the image into black and white and create this sort of a weird crayon effect, or this weird effect that you see here. Then we have the gradient map. This is really useful. It just remaps the tones on your image with a gradient from shadows to highlights. So for example, if I have this here, I could say I want my shadows to be blue, and as you go towards the highlights, change it to yellows, and you have this sort of gradient. My pure highlights are yellow and my pure blacks are blue, and the midtones have this mix of lights here. Of course, you can add as many colors as you want and create all sorts of weird effects, and never forget about the blend modes. You can create a sort of apocalyptic scenes here with this blend modes and the adjustments. And then we have the selective color, which allows you to select each color independently. For example, yellows, and I want all my yellows to have more cyan. Well, you can add more cyan, or more magenta, and more yellow, and black is the luminosity. And you can see how you changed only those yellows, and the rest of the colors stay the same before and after. Okay, and you can do, for example, the blues or the cyans, which is more cyan than blue here on the sky. I want to have more cyan, more magenta, maybe more yellow. If you put negative values on a yellow, for example, if I put negative values, it's going to add blue. I didn't mention this, but the opposite of cyan is red, the opposite of magenta is green. So if I have negative here, it's going to add green, as you can see right over here. And the opposite of yellow is blue. That's how they work. They are complementary colors or opposite colors. Okay, so these are the adjustments. They allow you to make changes in color, contrast, luminosity, and the exposure of your image, which is the same as a contrast. So these are the adjustments. Don't be afraid to play with them. Use combination of opacities, blend modes. You can create all sorts of combinations. So for example, you can add a gradient map with this color, set it on soft light, drop the opacity a bit, then add a channel mixer and just tweak a few settings in here and drop some of the opacity, and there you go. You can create all sorts of effects, and the combinations are endless.